Congratulations, you just declared war on the wrong species. Alex Morgan stood on the observation deck of the star station, staring out at the black void sprinkled with stars. He had never been so close to a real first contact before, and yet he felt a strange calm inside. Around him, other humans moved with quiet purpose. Engineers checked panels, scientists monitored screens, and a few diplomats spoke softly into communicators. Alex could see Laura Bennett across the room, her brow furrowed as she examined a holographic display of Velari signals. "Do you think they understand us?" Alex asked, trying to keep his voice even. Laura didn't look up. "They are listening, that much is clear. Whether they understand is another question." Alex nodded. He wanted to say more, but he felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this. Ships, stations, translators, and protocols, all designed to make contact smooth. And yet nothing truly prepared anyone for the uncertainty of a first official encounter. The Velari appeared on the station's main communication array as a shimmering figure of light and shadow. Their language was beautiful but strange, like music that was only half understood by human ears. Every gesture they made seemed purposeful, and yet completely alien. Alex felt a flutter of nervousness. "They are sending a formal message," Laura said. Her fingers danced over her console, adjusting translation parameters. It says we are in violation of some interstellar territorial law." Alex blinked. "Territorial law. We haven't even claimed anything outside the solar system yet. This must be a mistake." Laura shook her head slowly. "Or they interpret human communication differently. Their system doesn't match ours. They could see our normal greetings as aggressive posturing." Alex ran a hand through his hair. "So, are they angry?" "Not sure," Laura replied. "It is complicated, but it might be best to treat this as a misunderstanding. Escalating too fast could be dangerous." The room was quiet for a moment, everyone listening to the hum of the station and the soft clicks of machines. Then the translation console beeped again. A clear statement appeared in English. "The Velari Union hereby declares war against the human species for trespassing in sovereign space." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He stared at the text, then looked at Laura. "They just declared war." Laura's eyes widened slightly, but her voice remained calm. "That's what it says, but remember, they might not even know what that means to us. Their concept of war could be very different." Alex swallowed hard. "Different or worse." The station's commander, a tall woman named Sarah Milton, walked over. She had a presence that seemed to demand attention without saying a word. "Status?" she asked, her voice steady. Laura explained quickly, showing the declaration on the main screen. Sarah frowned, but there was no panic in her face. Instead, she gave a slow nod. "All right, everyone, no sudden moves. Let's treat this as a diplomatic emergency, not a combat situation. Alex, you and Laura focus on translation and communication. Make sure they understand we don't mean to trespass. Everyone else, follow standard defensive protocols, but keep them invisible." Alex felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Invisible defensive protocols sounded like hiding, but they also meant humanity was ready. "Understood," he said. Hours passed as Alex and Laura worked tirelessly to clarify humanity's intentions. The Velari messages kept coming, formal and precise, but the translations never matched exactly. Every word seemed loaded with meaning that humans could not fully grasp. Yet through repetition and patient explanations, Alex began to notice a pattern. The Velari were not angry like humans might be. They were cautious, curious, confused. And slowly it became clear that their declaration of war was not meant to frighten. They saw humans' presence as a legal or procedural offense, not a personal attack. Still, the statement had consequences. Human governments took it seriously. Ships in orbit were repositioned. Trade stations were reinforced. Scientists ran simulations. But while some were tense, there was also a strange calm. Humanity had survived worse. Plagues, disasters, economic collapses, planetary wars, they had always adapted and endured. Alex felt that same calm now, a quiet confidence that humanity could survive even this first official contact. By late evening, the Velari sent another message. This one was shorter, more direct. "You are warned. Leave the corridor or face action." Alex read the translation aloud. "Leave the corridor or face action." Laura frowned. "We need to clarify, the corridor is a neutral zone, not ours. We can't leave it, and we don't plan to interfere. They need to understand the difference." Alex nodded and typed a response, careful with every word. We acknowledge your message. We do not intend to claim territory or cause conflict. We request dialogue to resolve misunderstandings. Hours turned into a full cycle of communication. The Veleri responses were slow, deliberate, and often confusing. But something remarkable began to happen. While humans expected fear or chaos, the Veleri observed calm. Trade shipments continued. Stations operated normally. Civilians on distant colonies were unaware of any imminent threat. Ryan Cole, a transport coordinator on a nearby orbital hub, noticed the first sign of confusion among Veleri observers. His small shuttle docked smoothly, unloading supplies for a mining station on the asteroid belt. He greeted the crew with casual smiles and small talk, the kind of mundane communication humans often ignored. One of the Veleri monitoring the hub asked what was happening. Routine supply transfer, Ryan said. Nothing unusual. Everyone follows safety rules. Supplies are accounted for, that's it. The Veleri data streams showed a ripple of uncertainty. War, in their understanding, meant panic, aggression, rapid mobilization. None of that existed here. Humans acted normal, calm, focused. Back on the star station, Alex and Laura continued to translate messages. Each time the Veleri attempted to escalate, humanity's calm response caused delays. The Veleri expected fear. They expected chaos. They expected humans to retreat or resist aggressively. Instead, humans simply adapted. They rerouted shipments, reinforced stations quietly, and kept communication open. In the quiet moments, Alex looked at Laura. "Do you think they understand us?" he asked again. Laura shook her head. "Not yet. They see our actions, but they don't understand the reasoning. To them, our calm might seem strange, even wrong." Alex smiled faintly. "I guess that's good. It gives us time." As night fell on the station, Alex took a rare moment to step onto the outer observation deck. Stars stretched in every direction. The Veleri fleet, faint and shimmering, could be seen far off, maintaining distance. It was intimidating, yet Alex felt no fear. Humanity had always survived. This was just another challenge. He thought of the messages that had come in from Earth and other human colonies. Families were continuing their lives, workers doing their jobs, scientists pushing forward with experiments. Everyone understood the instructions: remain calm, stay focused, adapt. No panic. No chaos. Even the diplomats showed restraint. Grace Turner, an envoy assigned to the mission, had sent reports that reflected humanity's strategy: survival through order, adaptation, and understanding. Every decision, no matter how small, was designed to show the Veleri that humans were not reckless aggressors. By the end of the cycle, the Veleri had sent yet another formal message. This one was shorter than the first, almost hesitant. "We will monitor your actions. Further movement will be noted." Alex read it aloud to Laura. "They're watching," Laura nodded. "Yes, and they don't know what to make of us yet." Sarah Milton entered the room again, her presence calm but commanding. "Good work, both of you. Keep translating and clarifying. Everyone else maintain readiness. No sudden movements. We are not looking for a fight, but we are prepared for one if needed." Alex felt a strange pride. Humanity was not panicking. They were not hiding. They were surviving, step by step, with quiet determination. The Veleri might have declared war, but they had not broken the human spirit. Hours turned into days, and Alex began to notice a subtle change in the Veleri transmissions. The tone shifted from formal accusation to cautious observation. It was still a declaration of war on paper, but in practice, the Veleri seemed uncertain. They expected humans to act in fear. Humans did not. They expected aggression. Humans did not. "Do you think they will back down?" Alex asked Laura as they monitored the latest messages. Laura shook her head slowly. "Not back down. They don't see it that way. They are trying to understand us. That is something different. That is unusual for them." Alex nodded. "Unusual, yes, but maybe that is good." It was the calm after the storm that Alex found most remarkable. Humans had not raised weapons. They had not screamed in panic. They had done nothing dramatic. And yet, every quiet action, every careful communication, every patient clarification had begun to unsettle the Veleri. Ryan Cole's shuttle deliveries continued without incident. Grace Turner's negotiations with neutral observers remained professional and steady. Alex and Laura continued translating messages, refining each word to ensure clarity. Humanity acted as it always had. enduring, adapting, and moving forward no matter what challenges appeared. In the observation deck's quiet moments, Alex stared out at the stars again. Somewhere in that vast darkness, a new chapter of human history was unfolding. The Velari had declared war, yet humanity remained calm. They had not panicked. They had not fled. They had simply acted like humans always had, surviving step by step, day by day, challenge by challenge. And in that calm, Alex understood something profound. Humanity might not be the strongest in terms of sheer firepower. They might not be the most advanced in technology, but they had something far more important: endurance, adaptability, the ability to survive anything. And perhaps, Alex thought quietly, that was what truly made humans dangerous. Days passed on the star station, and the tension from the Velari's declaration of war slowly began to show its cracks, not in humans, but in the aliens themselves. Humans went about their routines as usual. Engineers repaired systems, transport crews delivered supplies, and scientists monitored experiments. There was no grand parade of weapons, no loud displays of strength, nothing to signal fear or aggression. And the Velari, observing carefully from their distant ships, did not understand it. Ryan Cole was on his third shuttle run of the cycle, moving essential supplies between a research station and a mining colony. He had worked through hundreds of supply runs in his life, and this was no different. The Velari observers, however, monitored everything he did, expecting something alarming. Each time Ryan completed a routine docking, the Velari data streams showed confusion. They seemed unable to process that a species facing a formal declaration of war could behave so calmly. "Another smooth landing," Ryan said, speaking to his co-pilot Megan Lewis as the shuttle glided into the station bay. Megan smiled, checking the load. "Smooth as always." "I don't think they even know what to do with us." Ryan laughed softly. "Maybe that's the point. We're not their idea of dangerous, but if they can't figure us out, that could be a bigger problem for them than for us." Meanwhile, back on the main station, Alex Morgan and Laura Bennett worked through long hours of translation. Every message from the Velari required careful attention. Some were formal, accusing humans of violations. Others were hesitant, almost uncertain. It was as if the Velari themselves could not decide what to do next. "They don't understand calm," Laura said, rubbing her temples. "To them, war means chaos. They expect panic, fear, aggression, but none of that is happening. Every human action looks wrong to them." Alex nodded. "It's strange. Their aggression is based on what they expect, not on what we do, and we're not giving them anything they expect." Laura glanced at the latest translation. "They want us to respond, to escalate, but we can't do that, not yet. We need more information, more understanding." Alex looked out at the distant Velari ships, tiny points of light against the vast darkness. "And every moment we stay calm, they get more confused. Maybe that's a weapon we already have." On one of the human colonies, a small city on a planet covered with red deserts and jagged mountains, Grace Turner monitored civilian communications. She noticed something unusual. Messages were arriving from remote towns and settlements. People were talking about the Velari declaration, but there was no panic, no evacuations, no fear-based chaos. People continued with work, school, and daily life. "Why aren't they scared?" Grace asked herself. She checked the records. "They don't panic in war, they survive it." She realized that the Velari's expectation of terror and submission would never happen with humans. Instead, humans adapted. If the aliens tried to intimidate them, humans would respond with careful planning, organization, and resilience. It was a type of strength the Velari had not encountered. Back on the station, Alex and Laura were analyzing Velari communication patterns. Each day, the messages became shorter, more hesitant. At first, the Velari had used long, formal sentences filled with rules and demands. Now the sentences were brief, almost uncertain. "They are trying to understand us," Laura said. "They don't know what to do." Alex leaned back in his chair. "And we're doing nothing aggressive, no weapons fired, no threats, just adapting. They don't have a model for this." Sarah Milton walked in, her presence calm but firm. "We keep our schedules. We keep our operations normal. No panic, no unnecessary alarm. That's how we stay human." In a distant orbital station, Ryan and Megan worked late into the cycle. Supplies were being rerouted to a remote mining outpost. The Velari observers were present in the background, unseen but recording. Ryan watched the readings, noticing their confusion growing. They're still expecting something, Ryan said. Something dramatic. But we're just normal, just humans doing our jobs. Megan nodded. And that's the problem for them, they can't predict us. They think war is loud and fast, but humans survive by being steady, calm, flexible. That's dangerous for them in a way they don't understand. Meanwhile, back on the station, Alex and Laura discovered another unexpected problem. The Velari were trying to enforce rules that humans didn't follow because humans had never needed them. In one message, they warned against moving resources through a neutral corridor. Humans did it anyway, carefully, but without breaking any laws of their own. They see it as violation, Alex said. We see it as efficiency, Laura laughed softly. Exactly, and that frustrates them. Every time we follow our own logic, they get confused. They expect obedience to rules they make up, not adaptability based on survival. Across the colonies, Grace Turner observed a subtle change in neutral species monitoring the situation. Other alien races watched humans with curiosity, noting the calm and steady response. Reports suggested that humans were reorganizing trade networks, distributing supplies, and strengthening communication systems, all quietly without panic. They don't even need to fight, Grace thought. They're winning by being themselves. In another part of the galaxy, a historian named Ethan Brooks was reviewing humanity's records for Velari observers. He showed evidence of countless disasters humans had survived. Volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, wars. Every time humans adapted, reorganized, and survived. They don't fear survival, Ethan explained to the Velari liaison watching him. They expect to endure. They improve under pressure. That is the pattern you cannot ignore. The Velari data streams responded with confusion. They had never faced a species that welcomed challenges as opportunities, rather than fearing them. Every human action, even when careful and ordinary, carried strength they could not comprehend. Back on the main station, Alex and Laura continued their work. The Velari messages were now a mix of demands, questions, and careful observations. They did not attack. They did not advance weapons. They waited, and every human action remained calm, steady, and purposeful. Laura shook her head. They are starting to question themselves. Every time we act normally, they think we are unpredictable, unstable, maybe dangerous, but we're just humans. Alex smiled faintly. That's the point. They don't understand us, and that gives us an advantage, not in firepower, but in endurance. Sarah Milton observed the situation quietly. They underestimate us because they expect fear, they expect chaos. We give them neither, and that will give humanity more time to prepare, to adapt, to survive. Even civilians on distant colonies noticed the calm response. They continued their lives, helping each other, sharing resources, and preparing quietly for possible disruptions. No one panicked, no one fled. Humans continued as they always had, resilient, cooperative, and practical. In one message, the Velari attempted another threat. Move your supplies and we will act. Alex read it aloud. They're trying again, still expecting fear. Laura responded carefully, translating the calm message back. We continue normal operations, no threat intended. We wish to communicate and avoid conflict. The Velari replied, slower this time. Hesitation was clear. They did not understand humans' calm. They did not understand that humans could survive a threat without panicking, without retaliating, without being defeated by fear. Ryan and Megan finished their final supply run for the cycle. The outpost was ready. Humans had reinforced systems, secured resources, and ensured communication lines were strong, and all the while the Velari observed, unsure what to do. They are still watching us, Megan said. But nothing we do is what they expect, Ryan nodded, and that's why we're winning in a sense, not by fighting but by surviving, by being steady, by being human. Back on the main station, Alex felt a strange sense of pride. Humanity was not loud, they were not aggressive. They were not trying to scare the Velari. Yet, simply by being themselves, organized, calm, and adaptable, they were already proving that the Velari's expectations of war were flawed. Laura looked over his shoulder at the latest Velari message. They are learning something, she said, but they don't understand it yet. Every time they try to force the outcome, they only become more confused. That is our strength, not in firepower, but in endurance. Alex nodded. And that's how humans survive. Step by step, cycle by cycle, no matter what the challenge is. That is who we are. That is what makes us difficult to defeat. As the cycle ended, the Velari observers remained distant. They had declared war, but in practice, no attack had come. Instead, humanity had continued to adapt, to endure, to organize quietly but effectively. And with every calm, steady action, the Velari became more uncertain. For the first time, someone began to realize the truth. Humans were dangerous not because of weapons or numbers or aggression, but because they could survive anything. They could adapt to any situation. They could endure any challenge. And they did not need to show it to prove it. And somewhere, far off in the galaxy, the Velari Union began to doubt their own understanding of war. The Velari Union continued to monitor humans closely. Every movement, every decision, and every calm response was noted in their data streams. And every time, confusion grew. They had expected chaos, panic, and fear. Instead, humans acted steadily, calmly, and efficiently. To the Velari, this behavior seemed unnatural. On the star station, Alex Morgan sat at the translation console for what felt like the 100th cycle. He had lost track of time. Laura Bennett was beside him, scrolling through the Velari communication logs, her face showing careful concentration. "They're still sending reports," Laura said, "but the tone is different now, hesitant, unsure." Alex nodded. "They're realizing something they didn't expect." He paused. "That humans survive no matter what." Sarah Milton walked into the room, holding a thin report. "The Velari are asking for clarification on human behavior," she said. "They don't understand why we don't panic or retaliate. Their reports indicate frustration." Alex leaned back. "Frustration? That's a good sign." Laura laughed softly. "Yes, they expect fear, not calm. They expect aggression, not careful planning. Every time we act like humans, they get more uncertain. That's our advantage." Meanwhile, on a colony planet with rolling green plains and wide rivers, Grace Turner observed human activity. Farmers, teachers, and engineers worked side by side. Children went to school. Supply chains ran smoothly. Even in areas where the Velari had warned of possible disruption, humans adapted quietly. "They don't fight like we expect," Grace said to herself. "They don't panic. They survive, they improve under pressure. That is unsettling to the Velari." Back on the star station, Alex noticed a pattern emerging. Every Velari report included notes on human adaptability, endurance, and cooperation. The aliens seemed unable to understand that humans thrived under challenges. "They keep analyzing us," Laura said. "But their model doesn't work. They try to predict human responses using logic and rules from their own culture. But humans aren't predictable that way. We survive by thinking differently, by adapting." Alex smiled. "And that unpredictability is more dangerous than any weapon. They declared war on us thinking it would scare us, but we're just humans." Ryan Cole and Megan Lewis were on a long supply run through a neutral corridor. Velari ships patrolled in the distance, observing every movement. Ryan spoke calmly to Megan as they adjusted the shuttle's course. "They expect panic," he said. "They think humans will flee or fight recklessly, but we're doing what humans always do: stay calm, survive, adapt. That's what confuses them." Megan nodded. "They've never faced a species like us, one that thrives under pressure, that doesn't break under threats. They think survival requires submission or fear, but humans survive by being themselves." In another part of the galaxy, a historian named Ethan Brooks presented data to Velari observers. He showed how humans had survived plagues, natural disasters, and wars on their own planet. Each time, humans had rebuilt, adapted, and grown stronger. "They improve during crises," Ethan explained. "They do not collapse, they endure. That is their strength. Not weapons, not firepower, but endurance, adaptation, and unity." The Velari recorded his words, but the concept was difficult for them. They were used to species breaking under pressure or fighting immediately to survive. Humans did neither. Humans endured and adapted. Slowly, the Velari began to realize they had misjudged the species they had declared war upon. Back on the station, Alex and Laura prepared the latest human message. Calm, clear, and factual, it explained the movements of ships, supplies, and colonies. No threats, no fear. No empty promises. Every action was grounded in survival and communication. Laura smiled. "Every time they try to escalate, we respond with clarity and calm, and they have no idea what to do with it." Alex nodded. "They expected chaos. They expected fear. They got calm and reason. That is more powerful than any attack they could launch." On the colony planets, civilians continued their lives. Teachers taught children. Engineers repaired machinery, farmers harvested crops, and all the while the Veleri observed. They expected humans to panic, to react with fear or aggression, but humans remained steady, practical, and organized. Grace Turner watched the reports carefully. They underestimate humans because they think strength is violence, but humans survive because they endure. That is strength the Veleri cannot measure. Back at the station, the Veleri sent a message requesting dialogue. It was not a surrender, not an apology, just a question: why do you not respond as expected? Why do you continue without fear? Alex read the message aloud. They want to understand why we're calm. They're starting to realize they misjudged us. Laura responded, carefully translating human intentions. Humans survive by staying calm, by adapting, and by working together. We do not fear threats. We respond to challenges. That is who we are. The Veleri paused before sending the next message. It was slow, deliberate, almost hesitant. Your species behaves unusually. You do not react as expected. This is concerning. Alex and Laura exchanged glances. Concerning, Laura said softly. To them, that is a warning, and that is good. They are noticing our strength without understanding it. Sarah Milton nodded. Humans have always survived. That is why we endure, and that is why the Veleri are learning they misjudged us. We do not need to fight to show strength. We survive by being human. Meanwhile, Ryan and Megan continued their supply runs. The Veleri remained at a distance, watching carefully. Every calm docking, every careful adjustment, every clear communication added to the aliens' uncertainty. They don't know what to expect, Megan said. Every time we act normally, they see it as dangerous, unpredictable, powerful. Ryan nodded. And that's why we're winning even without firing a shot. We survive, we endure. That is what makes humans dangerous. Across the galaxy, Grace Turner observed neutral species taking note of human behavior. Other civilizations were curious. Humans did not react with aggression. Humans did not panic. Humans survived by being calm, organized, and resilient. They are learning something important, Grace thought. Humans survive challenges not by destroying others, but by adapting, enduring, and improving. That is strength they cannot measure, cannot predict. Back at the station, Alex and Laura received another Veleri message. It was hesitant, almost confused. You survive threats in ways we cannot comprehend. You are difficult to assess. Alex smiled faintly. That is correct. We are difficult to assess. That is our advantage. Laura nodded. Every time they try to force fear or chaos, we show calm. Every time they try to predict aggression, we show reason. And every time they are unsure what to do next. Sarah Milton observed quietly. They declared war on a species they did not understand. That mistake will cost them, not because we are violent, but because we survive. Because we endure, because we adapt. On the distant colonies, humans continued their routines. Schools, factories, farms, and research stations all operated normally. Humans communicated clearly and worked together. They were organized, calm, and prepared. And all the while, the Veleri watched, learning more about a species they had misjudged. Alex reflected on everything he had seen. Humans were not the strongest in weapons or numbers. They were not the most technologically advanced. But they were strong in a way that mattered most. They endured, they adapted, they survived, and they did not need to prove it with violence or aggression. Laura leaned back and smiled. They expected fear, they expected chaos, they got calm, order, and adaptation. That is what makes humans dangerous. Across the galaxy, Veleri leaders held meetings, debating how to respond. They had declared war thinking humans would panic, thinking humans would react with fear or aggression. Instead, humans had adapted. Humans had survived. And that realization was beginning to unsettle the Veleri Union itself. Ryan Cole finished his shift and looked out at the stars. They don't understand us, he said to Megan. And that's why we're winning, not by force, but by being human, calm, strong, adaptable. That is a kind of power they cannot measure, Megan nodded. And that is why humans will endure. No matter what happens, we survive. That is the story of our species. On the station, Alex looked at the latest Veleri message. It was short, hesitant, almost a whisper through the translators. You are not like any species we have encountered. Your behavior is a threat we cannot measure. Alex smiled. They see us now not as weak, not as simple, but as a species they cannot control or predict. And that is exactly who we are, Laura nodded. Humans survive, humans adapt, humans endure, and the Veleri are learning that the hard way. Sarah Milton walked past them quietly. They declared war on the wrong species, she said softly. They thought fear would stop us. But humans endure, and endurance, that is a power no one can ignore. And so, as the cycles continued, humans remained calm, steady, and adaptable. The Velari had declared war, but humans had already begun to win, not with weapons, but with resilience. Not with aggression, but with endurance. And slowly, the Velari Union realized that they had underestimated a species that thrived under challenge. In the quiet corridors of star stations, on distant colonies, and in the vast reaches of space, humanity continued its daily work. They survived, they adapted, and they endured. And with each cycle, the Velari learned a truth that no declaration of war could erase. Humans were not just survivors. They were a force no one could predict, control, or destroy. The Velari Union's fleet lingered near the human-controlled corridors, but their movements were cautious, hesitant. Every day, they watched human stations, colonies, and supply runs, expecting chaos. Instead, they saw order. They expected fear. Instead, they saw calm. They expected rebellion or panic. Instead, they saw humans working quietly, steadily, and with purpose. Alex Morgan and Laura Bennett were at the translation console reviewing the latest Velari reports. They are still trying to predict us, Alex said, but every time they do, we surprise them by just being human. Laura smiled. It's like they have no idea how we operate. They think war is all about aggression and fear. They don't understand that we survive by planning, organizing, and adapting. Sarah Milton entered, carrying a thin folder of communications. The Velari are beginning to ask for trade routes and colony information. They want to know what we are doing, not to attack, but to understand. And their tone, it's almost polite now. Alex raised his eyebrows. Polite after declaring war? Sarah nodded. Yes, polite and hesitant. They've realized that our calm is not weakness, it is strength. Meanwhile, Grace Turner was coordinating communication with neutral species. Many had been observing humans quietly, curious about how they responded to the Velari threat. Grace sent out calm and clear updates, showing that humanity was not panicking, not preparing to fight aggressively, but adapting and strengthening systems. They are learning, Grace said. They see humans as a species that survives, not by fear, not by force, but by endurance and intelligence. On one of the colonies, Ryan Cole and Megan Lewis continued their shuttle runs. Every docking and supply transfer was smooth, precise, and calm. The Velari observers noted every detail, unable to understand how humans could act so organized under the shadow of declared war. They expect chaos, Ryan said quietly. They expect panic, but we just keep moving, keep adapting, keep surviving. Megan nodded. And that confuses them. Every step we take, they try to predict us. Every calm action we take makes them more unsure. That is our strength. Back on the station, Alex noticed a subtle change in Velari messages. Their tone had softened. Commands were replaced with questions. Requests for information replaced threats. It was clear that they were beginning to reassess humanity, realizing that this species did not respond to fear, did not panic under pressure, and did not submit easily. Laura studied the patterns. They're trying to find weaknesses, she said, but there are none they can see. Humans don't break, humans adapt, humans endure, and that is what they can't understand. Across the galaxy, neutral species began to notice the same thing. Human colonies continued to operate efficiently. Trade routes remained open. Civilian life continued. Even when warned of Velari presence, humans adapted quietly, ensuring safety and communication. No one panicked. No one fled. Humans survived. And that survival, calm and steady, was beginning to influence other species' opinions. Grace Turner sent updates to neutral species. Humanity does not seek conflict, she wrote. We survive, we adapt, and we endure. We work with others, we communicate, and we organize. That is our way, that is our strength. Velari leaders received these messages and studied them carefully. Their fleet commanders grew uneasy. Every human action showed calm, efficiency, and adaptability. Every colony functioned normally. Every supply run completed successfully. And yet the Velari had declared war. They are not responding as we expected, one Velari commander said. They are not afraid, they are not panicked, they are adapting. How do we counter that? Another Velari leader shook its head. We do not know. Every step we take to provoke them only shows their strength. We misjudge them. Their calm is dangerous. Their endurance is dangerous. We cannot predict them. Back on the station, Alex and Laura prepared another human communication. This one was simple and calm, no threats. No bravado, just information about human colonies, trade routes, and supply chains. Everything was transparent, precise, and organized. "This is who we are," Alex said. "We survive by being clear, calm, and prepared. That is more powerful than any weapon." Laura nodded. "And it confuses them. Every time they try to predict our behavior, we adapt and survive. They are realizing that we are not weak, that we cannot be controlled by fear." Meanwhile, Ryan and Megan completed another supply run to a remote colony. The Veleri ships observed closely, but every operation was calm and efficient. Docking procedures were smooth, supplies were accounted for, communication was clear. "They cannot understand us," Ryan said. "Every calm action makes them doubt themselves. Every step we take shows them strength they cannot measure." Megan smiled. "And that is why we endure, we survive, we adapt. That is our power." Across the galaxy, neutral species began to adjust their opinions of humans. They noted the calm efficiency, the resilience, and the endurance. Reports from distant colonies showed the same pattern. Humans did not panic. Humans adapted. Humans survived. Grace Turner continued her communications. "Humanity does not act aggressively unless threatened," she wrote. "We survive by planning, organizing, and working together. That is our strength. That is why we endure." Back on the station, Veleri commanders held meetings. "We declared war," one said, "thinking it would scare them. It did not. We expected chaos. It did not come. We expected panic. It did not come. They survive. They adapt. They endure. How do we respond?" Another Veleri leader replied, "We cannot predict them. Every move we make only shows their strength, their endurance, their calm. We misjudged them. We have declared war on a species we do not understand." Alex and Laura continued monitoring the communications. "They are questioning themselves now," Laura said. "They are realizing that every time they try to control or scare us, they fail, and every calm step we take only shows our strength." Sarah Milton observed quietly. "They declared war on the wrong species," she said. "They expected fear. They expected chaos. Instead, they see order, calm, and resilience. That is what makes humans powerful, not weapons, not numbers, but endurance and adaptability." On a distant colony, Ryan and Megan finished another shuttle run. The station was secure. Supplies were in place. Communication lines were clear, and all the while the Veleri observed, unable to understand the strength in calmness and organization. "They are confused," Megan said. "Every calm step we take makes them doubt themselves. They thought they could control us." "They thought fear would work. It does not," Ryan nodded. "Humans survive, we endure, we adapt. That is what makes us unpredictable. That is what makes us strong." Back on the main station, Alex and Laura reviewed the latest Veleri message. It was hesitant, almost polite. "Your behavior is unusual. You survive under threats we expected to defeat you. You are difficult to measure," Alex smiled. "That's right. We are difficult to measure. That is why we endure. That is why we survive." Laura nodded. "Every calm action, every careful plan, every organized step, it shows strength. And the Veleri cannot understand it. That is our advantage." Across the galaxy, neutral species continued to note human behavior. They saw colonies functioning efficiently, trade routes operating smoothly, and civilians continuing their lives calmly. They saw humans adapting quietly, surviving threats, and working together. Grace Turner sent another report. "Humanity survives, we adapt, we endure. We do not seek conflict, but we will survive any challenge. That is our strength. That is why humans endure." Veleri commanders grew more uncertain. Every attempt to intimidate humans had failed. Every attempt to provoke fear or aggression had failed. Humans remained calm, organized, and resilient. On the star station, Sarah Milton spoke quietly to Alex and Laura. "They declared war thinking they could scare us. But humans survive not because we are aggressive, but because we endure, because we adapt, because we are prepared." "That is a power no one can underestimate," Alex nodded. "And they are realizing it. Every day they see that we are not weak. Every day they see that calm, steady endurance is stronger than fear. That is how humans survive." Laura smiled. "And it is how we will continue. Step by step, cycle by cycle, we endure, we adapt, we survive, and they cannot stop it." Ryan and Megan looked out at the stars from their shuttle. "They cannot understand us," Megan said. "Every calm step we take makes them doubt themselves. They cannot control us." They cannot predict us, and that is why we endure, Ryan nodded. Humans survive, humans adapt, humans endure, and that is the power no one can measure. Back on the station, Alex read the latest Valari message aloud. We cannot predict your actions. You survive without fear. You endure without submission. You adapt without aggression. This is dangerous, Alex smiled. That's right, that is the truth. Humans endure, we survive, we adapt, and they are learning it too late. Laura nodded. We don't need to fight, we survive by being ourselves. That is more powerful than any fleet, any weapon, any threat. Sarah Milton walked past them, her voice quiet but firm. They declared war on the wrong species. They expected fear. They expected chaos. Instead, they see calm, organization, and resilience. That is the strength of humans. That is why we endure. And across the galaxy, humanity continued. Calm, steady, organized, and resilient, every colony functioned, every trade route remained open, every civilian life continued. Humans survived, humans adapted, humans endured. And the Velari Union, which had declared war, was beginning to see the truth. They had misjudged the species they had declared war against. The Velari Union's fleet hovered in the neutral space corridor, but tension filled their ranks. Every observation showed humans continuing their daily routines, calm and organized. Their colonies were functioning efficiently. Trade routes remained open. Supply lines were steady. Every human action displayed resilience, adaptation, and quiet strength. Alex Morgan stood on the observation deck of the star station, looking at the distant Velari ships. They still don't understand us, he said to Laura Bennett beside him. Every calm step we take confuses them. Every routine action shows them a kind of strength they cannot measure. Laura nodded. They declared war thinking fear would work. It didn't. They expected chaos. It didn't come. They assumed aggression, but we adapted. That is why they are unsure now. Sarah Milton approached them quietly. They misjudged humanity from the start. They thought war would scare us, but they see something different now. Calm, order, endurance, and that scares them more than any weapon. Meanwhile, Grace Turner coordinated messages with neutral species. Many had been observing humanity throughout the conflict. They had seen humans survive threats without panic, adapt to challenges without aggression, and maintain daily life under pressure. They endure, Grace said softly. They adapt, they survive, and that is what the Velari fear, not our ships, not our weapons, our ability to endure anything. In a distant colony, Ryan Cole and Megan Lewis prepared for another supply run. The Velari fleet remained at a cautious distance, observing everything. Docking procedures were smooth, supplies were accounted for, communication was clear and calm. They still think they can intimidate us, Ryan said, but we survive by being ourselves. Every calm, steady action makes them doubt their assumptions. That is our advantage. Megan nodded. They declared war on the wrong species. We endure, we adapt. That is what makes us strong. Back on the star station, Alex and Laura reviewed the latest Velari communication. It was hesitant, almost respectful. We wish to speak. Your behavior is unusual. You survive without fear, adapt without aggression, and endure without submission. We misjudged you. Alex read the message aloud. They want to speak. They finally realize we are not what they expected. Laura smiled. It took time, but they are learning, not through battle, but through observation. Our calm, our endurance, our adaptability, that is what showed them our true strength. Sarah Milton nodded. Prepare for dialogue. Keep our tone clear, calm, and honest. We do not need to boast or threaten. Our actions have already done that for us. Grace Turner sent out coordinated messages to neutral species and Velari observers. She emphasized that humans did not seek conflict but would endure any challenge. Every colony's operations, every trade route, and every civilian routine was described clearly. This is who we are, Grace said. Humans survive, adapt, and endure. That is our strength. That is why we remain unbroken. The Velari leaders convened, discussing the situation more seriously than ever before. We declared war expecting fear, one said. We assumed humans would panic, submit, or fight recklessly. None of that happened. They survive calmly, adapt to challenges, and endure anything we present. How do we respond? Another Velari leader replied, We misjudged them. They are not what we expected. Their calm is power. Their endurance is strength. We cannot predict them, and that makes them dangerous. Meanwhile, on the star station, Alex and Laura prepared for the first formal dialogue with the Velari. Their message was simple and clear. Humans did not seek war. Humans had endured. Humans had adapted. Humans would continue to do so. They are finally asking for understanding, Laura said. They see us now not as weak, not as simple, but as a species they cannot control. Alex nodded. And that is enough. We survive without fighting. We endure without aggression. And they finally recognize it. Across the galaxy, neutral species watched closely. They saw humans continue their daily routines. They saw calm and organized responses to challenges. They saw a species that survived and adapted without panic or chaos. Slowly, they began to understand why humans endured. Grace Turner sent another message. Humanity does not act aggressively unless threatened. We survive by planning, organizing, and adapting. That is our strength. That is why humans endure. Back on the station, Ryan Cole and Megan Lewis finished another supply run. The Valeri fleet observed at a distance, hesitant to act. Every human action displayed calm, precise, and steady efficiency. They cannot figure us out, Ryan said. Every calm step we take makes them doubt their predictions. Every routine task shows our strength. Megan nodded. And that is why we survive, we endure, we adapt. That is the power they cannot measure. On the star station, Alex and Laura received a final message from the Valeri Union. We formally retract the declaration of war. We acknowledge your species' strength, endurance, and adaptability. We seek dialogue and cooperation, not conflict. Alex read it aloud. They are officially retracting the war. They understand now. They misjudged us. Laura smiled. It took observation, patience, and calm, but they see our strength, not in weapons, not in numbers, but in endurance, adaptation, and survival. Sarah Milton entered the room. Prepare for the dialogue. Keep our message clear. We do not need to boast. Our actions have already proven our strength. Meanwhile, Grace Turner coordinated with neutral species to ensure continued communication. Humans survive. Humans adapt. Humans endure. That is our strength. That is why we remain unbroken. And that is the lesson for anyone who would underestimate us. Ryan and Megan looked at the stars from their shuttle. They finally understand, Megan said. They thought they could scare us. But humans survive by being themselves. Calm, steady, organized, adaptable. That is strength. Ryan nodded. Humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans survive. And that is power no one can measure or control. Back on the station, Alex prepared for the first meeting with the Valeri. The conversation was simple and honest. Humans did not seek war. Humans had survived the declaration calmly. Humans had adapted and endured. Humans would continue to do so. Laura stood beside him. They see us now not as weak, not as a threat to be destroyed, but as a species they cannot predict. That is why they came to dialogue. Sarah Milton added, they declared war on the wrong species. They assumed fear would control us. It did not. Calm endurance showed them our strength. Adaptation proved our power. And survival proved our unbroken spirit. Grace Turner continued sending messages to neutral species, emphasizing humanity's true strength, calm, organized endurance. The message spread across colonies and trading routes. Humans did not panic. Humans adapted. Humans survived. That was their power. That was their way. That was why they endured. The Valeri Union prepared for the first face-to-face dialogue. Their fleet remained cautious, observing human routines closely. They had seen colonies function, trade routes operate, and civilians continue their daily lives without panic. They realized that humans survived threats without fear, adapted to challenges without aggression, and endured challenges without submission. They are unlike any species we have encountered, a Valeri commander said. Their calm is power, their endurance is strength, their adaptability is dangerous. We misjudged them. Alex and Laura reviewed their briefing notes. We do not need to fight, Alex said. Our calm, steady actions, our endurance and adaptability have already proven our strength. Laura nodded. And that is the lesson the Valeri have learned. They declared war on the wrong species. They assumed fear and chaos would work. But we endured, adapted, and survived. That is more powerful than any weapon. Across the galaxy, neutral species observed the dialogue preparations. They saw humans continuing their routines, remaining calm, and working together. They noted that humans survived without panic, adapted without aggression, and endured without submission. Slowly, respect for humanity grew. Grace Turner sent out a final report before the dialogue. Humanity survives, humanity adapts, humanity endures. That is our strength. That is why humans remain unbroken. And that is the lesson for all who observe us. Underestimate us at your own risk. The Valari Union arrived for the dialogue, tentative and respectful. They no longer spoke of war. They spoke of understanding, cooperation, and mutual respect. Alex Morgan stepped forward to greet them. We did not seek conflict. We have endured your declaration calmly. We have adapted to the challenge you presented. We continue to survive as humanity always has. Laura added, we hope to communicate clearly and work together. That is how we survive. That is how we endure. That is how we adapt. A Valari leader spoke, its voice steady but cautious. We declared war, thinking you would panic, thinking you would fear. We see now that you survive calmly, adapt efficiently, and endure without submission. We misjudged your species. We retract our declaration and seek dialogue. Alex nodded. Your understanding is welcome. Humanity survives by being calm, organized, and adaptable. That is our strength. That is why we endure. Sarah Milton watched quietly, proud. They declared war on the wrong species, she whispered. They assumed fear would control us, but humans endure, humans adapt, humans survive, and that is power no one can ignore. Ryan and Megan looked out at the stars from their shuttle. They finally see us, Megan said. They declared war on the wrong species. We survive by being ourselves, calm, steady, organized, and adaptable. That is strength. Ryan smiled. Humans endure, humans adapt, humans survive. That is power no one can measure, and that is why we are unbroken. Across the galaxy, humans continued their routines. Colonies functioned. Trade routes remained open. Civilians worked, learned, and lived. Humanity had faced the threat of a declaration of war and had survived calmly, adapted to the challenge, and endured without submission. And as the Valari Union formally recognized their misjudgment, the lesson became clear to all. Never underestimate a species that survives everything, adapts to every challenge, and endures without fear. Humanity had not only survived, but had shown a kind of strength that could not be measured by weapons or numbers. They had survived, adapted, and endured, and that was power enough to change the galaxy forever.